that was the recording, guys. I thought it would be interesting for you to listen to it. It just gets to show you a different side of Dolores. You make your own opinions, decisions. I'm not here to tell you what to think. It just reminded me of a time where I think it was, I can't remember which interview it was, but it was Caroline Manzo, and she was talking about the show. She was no longer on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, but she was talking about the show and who she was still friends with and all of that. And she talked about Dolores quite extensively and said, oh, you know, I like to see Dolores on the show. I think she belongs on the show. But at the same time, I don't feel like you are getting the real Dolores. I don't feel like you know who the real Dolores is, because she has another side to her that is a little bit more cutting. She didn't necessarily use the word cutting, but it was around those lines. And, you know, basically talking about Dolores having a bit more of a temper than what we see on the show, and how she is way more opinionated in real life than she is on the show. So she did say that a few years ago, Caroline Manzo, and I thought that it was very interesting because that's not how she's portrayed on the show. She's supposed to be the level-headed one, the one that doesn't want to fight with anybody, really. She's kind of like very neutral in a lot of situations. So I just thought it was interesting to just have that little recording to play for you guys. So speaking of Dolores, okay, recently there has been some accusations made about Paulie. If you've been listening to Gabriella or Melissa's Old Nose, she is doing a lot of different podcasts right now, and she's made an accusation about Paulie and what he really does for a living and all of that. So anyways, I just want to say that I was a little bit surprised to hear Gabriella say this about Paulie. And I'm not saying that I don't believe what she's saying or I believe it. I don't really have an opinion about it. Like I say all the time, guys, I will listen to anything that anyone has to say, but until it is verified, I'm just going to consider it gossip or hearsay. But I thought it was interesting that she said this on the David's podcast Behind the Velvet Rope, because not so long ago she was on Dana Wilkie's podcast, and you guys know I like Dana very much. I like the type of deep dives that she does and all of that, and I think she's very thorough. So anyways, she was on the podcast with Dana, and I remember Dana asked her at some point in time, do you have anything on Paulie? Because, you know, I've been looking for information on the guy for a few years now, and there's really nothing. There's nothing in New York. There's nothing in Ireland. There's really nothing on the guy. So do you know anything about him? To which Gabriella responded that no, she didn't really know anything about Paulie. The only thing that she knew of was that there's this rumor that Louis and Paulie give each other injection shots. I don't know what type of injections, but anyways, that they were doing that to each other. So that's basically what she said. So it was a little bit surprising that she furthered that gossip on David's podcast, but then she said that Paulie was never going to divorce his ex-wife and marry Dolores because he is very invested in a different business with her that has to do with, I don't know, like brothels in America or something like that. I don't know if they're in America or in Ireland, but I would assume that they're in America. But anyway, she said that this gossip came from Jim, who said this to Louis. Right? Anyways, so I don't know if this is true or not, but I just thought it would be interesting, since there is very little that we know about Paulie. I kind of did a little bit of a mini dive to try to find a little bit of information on Paulie, and this is what I find out. And guys, there's nothing salacious about what I'm about to say, so if you're really looking for like a piece of gossip here, you're not really going to find that in that segment. But I just thought it was interesting, since we have seen him on the show and we don't know much about him. So Paulie was born and raised in Ireland, and he came to the USA when he was 26 years old. At the mere age of 13 years old, he was a milkman in Ireland, and he had a milk run and started to make a lot of money. He didn't have any family in the USA when he came. He came alone. He didn't come with his mother. I don't know if Paulie has, I think he has siblings. Didn't we see his siblings on the show in Ireland? Anyways, so he came alone in America. And then just before he left for the US, Paulie was heavily involved in the house music scene in Ireland, and he was partying all the time. He was having a lot of fun. And then at some point in time, he was kind of leading down a wrong path. You kind of get the sense from what he's explaining that, you know, he was friends with people that were not necessarily doing the right things, and he was not doing the right thing either, and he was really into partying and having fun and all of that. And then, you know, he was just wondering, what am I going to make out of my life? He was kind of partying all the time, being lazy and all of that, right? So at some point in time, his mother received a call from a friend of hers that lived in the US. And I guess you know, he doesn't really explain too much about that, but you feel like there's something that is unsaid in the way that he is recounting the story. But to make a long story short, that friend of his mom basically said to her, I'm in the US. I think Paulie would do well here. Why don't you send him over? Why doesn't he come here? And then I feel like there's a future for him in America, right? So prior to his move to America, Paulie had lived a little bit all over Europe. He lived in Tenerife, Spain, and he bartended all over Greece and Ibiza and all of that, right? So Paulie makes it to the land of opportunities, but then he feels like he doesn't really fit in because of, obviously he speaks English, but he has this Irish accent, so he doesn't feel like everybody understands him or that he understands them, and he's kind of like feeling a little bit homesick or you know, like sorry for himself at that point. And then, you know, the person that brought him over said, hey, if you want to leave and if you don't want to go after these opportunities, then I'll buy you your ticket for Ireland, and then, you know, you can forget about America and all of that. And then at that point, Paulie kind of made the decision that he needed to try a little bit more, right, and give America a chance. So when he came to America, he was alone, but he left his girlfriend in Ireland, and again, he was homesick. So she would make the trip to the US quite often to come and see him. And in one of those visits, he knocked her up, she got pregnant, and then now he was in a situation where not only he was in a new country without any family, but now he was about to have a family of his own. And it was just one of those situations where Paulie was just like, you know what, I need to do something of my life and start to provide for my wife and this kid. So that was his first son. So when Paulie came to America, he kind of settled, you know, in New York, New Jersey area. His first job in the U.S. was a secretary job. He does not say what kind of company he was working for or what type of secretary. He doesn't really give a whole lot of details about that, but he does stress the fact that that job allowed him to know how to speak to people and to understand what they wanted. And, you know, just to kind of like become a person that was valuable within an organization. And the only thing that he says about this job is that he had to order breakfast for people at some point in time, but we don't know what type of job it was. He was just a secretary there. So then at some point in time, I don't know how this came about, but he just woke up one day and said, you know what, I just want to start painting. I want to be a painter, even though he didn't have any experience as a painter. And then he kind of started painting, and he became very good at it and had a little business, like a little painting business. But then eventually, after a few years, he grew tired of it, and he was kind of bored of doing that. And he was probably thinking there's probably more to life. He saw some people on a boat, and they looked like they were having fun. And then he was probably thinking about the life that he used to have in Ireland when he was making money and all of that. And painting was just not it. So he had